right. If you are a failure or you aspire to be one, you're in the right place. So we are going to get started. It's actually right on time. Brother Baker, he made me go late last time. He was just, I'm kidding. That is all me. So we're going to talk about how to be a successful failure in children's ministry. There is a phrase that I love to use all the time, and that is, I would rather have to rein in a noble steed than to have to prod a stubborn mule. And I like it so now. And it has, I'd rather try too hard than have to be pushed. And so we're talking about being a successful failure. And on the back, I have the Sunday school version of what that should say. Can someone read it? Because I can't. But it has like little crosses out and other words. I'd rather have to rein in an overly enthusiastic Sunday school teacher than to have to prod a boring teacher. Basically, I would rather you try too hard in Sunday school and mess up than never try hard enough. And that's something that we have kind of lived by, sometimes to our chagrin. Sometimes we have made some big oopses, some big messes. And if you look at this horse here, that dude can get himself in some trouble. He can run away, he can do some really dumb stuff, but that dude never causes trouble. He never does anything. Never accomplishes anything either. So if I have to choose between the two, I would rather be the one that messes up occasionally than the one that never tries hard enough to mess up. So we're going to talk about failure and how failure is not final. In fact, sometimes it's a good thing. I heard Brother Chris, he actually led right into this when he was talking earlier, and he said, I don't remember if it was last night, but he said if you have to look too far back to see your most recent failure. Oh, that was you? That was you that said that. Yeah, it was so good. It's like if you have to look way far back in your past to see when you've last failed, you're not trying hard enough. You need to try harder because a failure is part of being successful. So we're going to talk about being a successful failure. So sometimes your greatest success in ministry, children's ministry and anything else, doesn't come in spite of messing up occasionally. It comes because of it. Some of the best things in our Sunday school we've ever accomplished came because we blew it, because we messed up. So if you don't want to fall in that trap, if you want to avoid failure, don't talk. That's a good one. But if you want to avoid failure, I can give you the key right here. This is the key to avoiding failure. Number one, don't try hard. Number two, never risk anything. Number three, never do anything. There's a saying, my brother actually has it hanging in his office, and it says, you want to avoid criticism? Say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing. That's the only way you'll ever have anybody not talk bad about you. And they probably still will. But if you want to do your best to avoid it, don't do anything, don't say anything, don't be anything. And that's the same for failure. But if you're willing to stretch yourself, if you're willing to reach beyond your comfort level, you are going to fail sometimes. And that's actually a good thing because that's how you grow. All right, let's look at history. And I know these are stuff that is cliche, and sometimes it's almost like I've heard that before. But I'm going to go through a few of these. Michael Jordan, cut from his high school basketball team. We've heard that before. Thomas Edison failed 1,000 times before inventing the correct version of the light bulb. Colonel Sanders rejected more than 1,000 times before anybody believed in his chicken recipe. Walt Disney, bankrupt before Disneyland. Henry Ford failed 2 car companies before Ford Motor Company. P.T. Barnum went bankrupt before building his greatest show on earth. All of these people have one thing in common is failure. They all failed really, really hard. But they have something else in common. They also succeeded really, really big. They didn't let the bankruptcy, the embarrassment, or the defeat or the stigma of defeat define who they are, but they used every failure not as judgment or the courtroom, but as rather a classroom to learn. And so here's the key phrase we're going to keep going back to is failure isn't final or fatal unless you don't learn from it. If you repeat that failure over and over again, that's when you've actually failed. If you repeat it, what do they say? Shame on me. If I mess up, shame on me. The second, or shame on you, sorry. If you trick me the first time, shame on you. Trick me the second time, shame on me. I should have learned. If we can humble ourselves and ask, what can I learn? How do I do it better? How can I grow? You turn what the Bible says the enemy meant for defeat, what the enemy meant for failure. You've turned it to my good. We've turned it to my good. So we're going to go through a bunch of mistakes that we have made, that our friends have made. I've actually reached out to a bunch of our friends, and they shared some of their failures, but not just failures, but what they learned from them and how they came back stronger from the failure. I want to start with one that is, if you're part of our church, it has gone into legend. This is a series of failures that was pretty epic. It started with one of our Sunday school teachers, again, the overly enthusiastic, trying a little too hard. Well, there's an object lesson where you dip a dollar bill into alcohol and water, and you pull it out and you light it on fire. The alcohol burns away, but the water protects the dollar, and it's unharmed, and you can use it for a variety of things, like Moses and the burning bush. You know, the bush was not consumed. It's a good lesson. But the dollar bill was a little too small, so he wanted to go bigger. So he thought the next logical from a dollar bill is, of course, a 5-foot-long beach towel. Let's soak that bad boy in alcohol. And let's not practice it at home. No. Let's do it for the first time ever in front of all the kids in a ceiling, 8-foot ceiling with a drop ceiling. You already know where this is headed. So he has this little pair of tongs about that long, and he's holding this. Here, he lights it at the bottom. He thinks he's safe for about 2 seconds. Well, this thing engulfs in flame. The kids think it's the best lesson ever. I mean, they are like, this is awesome. Well, the flame gets so hot he can't hold it. So his option is to drop it or do what he did next, which is start swinging it around his head, trying to put it out. Well, now it's a sheet of flame over the kid's head. They're ducking, screaming. They still think it's kind of cool. The teachers are freaking out. We know this is not the way it's supposed to happen. There's no way he could have put any water in that thing, because that thing was not going out anytime soon. I don't really remember what happened. I think, the Lord has blocked that part. He had to have ran it out the door and thrown it on the concrete. But that was what we call strike one to fire in Sunday school, because it made it to the ears of our director. And he was hot. He was not happy. And so he didn't say much, just, hey guys, that was stupid. Don't do that. Well, strike two was me. So we're practicing, if you've seen it on Apostolic Sunday School, it's the fireballs. Don't be afraid of the Holy Ghost. And you have these fireballs that you can light, and you can actually hold them in your hand, and it doesn't burn your hand. Well, I was having fun with them. I was almost kind of juggling them, and I dropped them. Well, they hit the stage and rolled off and rolled under the kids' chairs. It's not big, but it's, 12-inch flame. And so the kids think it's safe. He held it, so it must not really be hot. And so they are throwing themselves on the fireballs, trying to fight over who gets the fireball. Well, I'm panicking. I know it's hot. You have to hold it a certain way. So I'm like Moses parting the Red Sea. I'm literally throwing kids, trying to get them off. Finally get the fireballs, put them out. Well, that was strike two. That made it to his ears. And then strike three. Oh, this one was good. Brother Bob Lee, is he here? I wish he could tell this himself. Well, he did. He went back to the well that just never keeps giving, the well with the water and the alcohol and the dollar bill. Yeah, we should have known. Don't go there again, right? It messed up the first time. Well, he thought, well, I'll mix it up, and so no one will even recognize it as the same lesson. So he took our offering basket, and he lined it with aluminum foil and filled it with alcohol and water. Well, it's a wicker basket. We didn't know it had a hole in the aluminum foil, so the entire basket is now soaked in alcohol. So he lights the dollar and puts it in. Well, the whole basket ignites. Well, there's money in it that all the kids had given. It's full of money. Well, and it starts catching, and he realizes, oh, no. The dollars are now floating, and they fall on the carpet and melt into the carpet. These dollars I'm panicking. I finally grab the basket, this flaming basket. I throw it out the door. I wish this was fiction. I threw it at the feet of our Sunday school director. I didn't know he was standing outside the door. And he's horrified. Well, by this time, it's like this nervous laughter. I start laughing. And he's, it was funny. It was really fun. But from that moment on, he placed a ban on fire. And he was not kidding. He said, you will never have fire in Sunday school again. And so that has been in the legend, in the lore of our Sunday school. Well, the irony of ironies is eventually I became Sunday school director, and he came and taught for us one time. So I had the immense pleasure to tell him, no fire in your class today. He did not laugh. He still doesn't laugh. It's not funny. It's not funny. But we thought it was funny. But what did we learn from that? First of all, is stretch yourself creatively. You do need to try stuff. Fire is not in itself bad, but you can be really done with it. And we crossed that threshold and some. We learned that you can stay smart and safe and still be creative, because big visuals and dramatic lessons are awesome, but only if you're wise, if you just use common sense. Don't let fear stop you from trying really cool lessons, but practice, practice, practice. And we have learned we don't ever do anything the first time in front of our Sunday school kids. It's always at home until we feel like we have it completely under control. Even then, now we have stuff on hand. If something were to happen, there's a fire extinguisher where we can grab it if we need it. We actually have a firefighter in as part of our team. That wasn't on purpose, but hey, it worked out. We learned never sacrifice safety for the show. We learned you can have fun without being stupid. And we learned you don't have to overreact when something goes wrong. Because our director literally said, you will never do another fire thing ever, ever, ever. And I'm not making fun of him because he's my father-in-law. And we still don't laugh about it. Like I cannot tease him about it. But it's a funny deal. But we learned that there are ways to correct a teacher without saying something that dramatic. But the alternative to us not burning things is never try too hard. Have boring, small, forgettable lessons for your kids. So am I happy we burned all that stuff? No. But we learned from it, and we came out the better for it. I learned one. This is not my story, but a friend told me about this. And they wanted to help with their bus ministry. And so he was excited. He was going after kids. He was knocking doors. And he said, I realized something was wrong when I turned, and it was me and another guy. They were both in their 20s with buckets of candy, walking around to all the kids in the park, telling them to come to Sunday school. He said, what are we doing? He said, I cannot believe the optics of this. Like, we look like the most creepy people in this whole park. They were doing good things. They weren't trying to be creepy. They were doing the work of God. They literally were all intentions were pure. They wanted to get kids to church. They were trying to make it fun. But outside looking in was really not good. It looked very questionable. It raised concerns. There were parents that were very concerned about what was happening. And so the lesson they learned is you have to be conscious in how things look to people that don't know your intentions. Sometimes we think we know how it, or we know our intentions, so we think everybody else understands, but they don't. We know our hearts, new families, visitors, sometimes the community. They don't see through our eyes. We need to look through what they're seeing. Ask yourself, if I didn't know my intentions, how would it look to me? Good intentions don't always cancel the bad views some people can have. So think ahead and plan. Here's one that was submitted. This is another good friend of ours. They had a huge imbalance between the number of kids and the staff. In fact, they said it was like the inmates were running the asylum. They couldn't control them. And bus ministry was exploding, which is exciting and fun, except they couldn't control it. And every class got crazier and crazier. There was fist fights. They would bring him in the main sanctuary for worship service, and sometimes there was fist fights not just between kids to kids, but adults fighting kids in the sanctuary. And they're thinking, we got to shut this down. Like, this is out of control. But instead of just shutting it all down, they learned, okay, whoa, we got to back this thing off until we have the structure to contain it. And so they didn't shut their bus ministry down. They just said, hold on. Before you bring a bunch of kids, we got to put some things in place. And they built out their teams, and they built out the structure, and they built out their policies until finally they could contain it. And now they're bringing in hundreds of kids a week and managing them and singing Get the Holy Ghost. But without that structure, they couldn't have done it. But they learned from the mistake. Bringing a lot of kids is not a mistake. The answer to that is not shut down your bus ministry. The answer is to build up the structure to handle it. Another problem they had is, this is something simple, but the van and the bus keys kept going missing. You know, the drivers, they'd drive and then they'd lose the keys, including the pastor. The pastor would misplace the keys, and because he drove a bus. And so they, let's get rid of the bus. Let's knock it down to just one bus, and then we don't have to worry about this, right? Everybody will have a key to. That's not the answer. The answer is putting air tags on all the key rings. Such a simple solution. That's what they do. They just put it on every single one. Yes, it costs a little bit, but it was a lot cheaper than rekeying all the vehicles. I'm going to skip a couple of these. Oh, here's one. Who here does animal balloons? Animal balloons are awesome. If you don't do them yet, learn how to do them. They're the cheapest, most fun way to connect with your kids. You can buy 400 of them for like $15 on Amazon. You can buy the pumps. They're a great way to connect with kids. Well, this particular church, their mistake was that they would hand them out right before the kids entered into the classroom. If you've done balloons, you know exactly what kind of problems that is. You hear squeak, 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 all class, or whap as they hit the kid in front of them with their sword, or pop, right in the middle of the serious lesson, or right before altar call. The balloons are awesome unless they're a distraction. And so they learned that these are still an incredible tool. They didn't learn, hey, let's never do balloons again because these are a bad idea. They learned when to give them out. Give them out after class. Give them out on the bus. Give them out at all these different intervals, but not right before you go into the class. Balloons have a place. They at the end of class, only when there's time, you can use them to create energy without losing focus. Another thing, this is that the same person that told me this one was, they thought, let's allow, because a lot of the parents said, hey, we'd like to be in your class. We'd like to sit in the class. And they said, yeah, man, the more adults, the better. Bring them in. Until those adults started being a problem. And I know that sounds odd, doesn't it? But I've had it happen. The adults are sitting on the back row playing on their phone, talking out loud while we're trying to teach. And they're in the back, and you're thinking, do you not realize what you're doing? And so all the kids that turn around looking at them, oh, you have a phone, therefore, why can't I bring my phone? And so it causes serious distraction. So this church learned that the only people that are allowed in the classroom are teachers or those that have been trained and are part of an active process of the classroom. You have to at least be involved in crowd control. You can't just sit there and watch. Nobody just sits and does nothing. We have to protect our environment, is what they learned. They learned that a good classroom is also a guarded classroom. And this is one that was shared to me. They had all the best of intentions, but to seat the ones that came on the bus separately from the ones that didn't. And the idea was sound. We know how to manage them differently. Well, you can imagine how that worked out. There was a lot of division caused, and they were thinking, well, they're different from us, and they were treated differently. They weren't treated differently, but they thought, there was all these thoughts going through their heads. There was a feeling of exclusion. There was a visible division between the kids, a sense that the bus kids weren't really part of the church. There was a feeling of that. The lesson they learned is that everybody belongs together, and they realized that's a really not good idea. So they have everybody mix in. The only way you can tell them apart is how they either act or dress, but as far as how we address them and how they sit, all of that is just that we want them all together. There's no special sections. There's no division. True belonging is everybody being together. The same one, and I'm going to pick on my friend here, Brother Baker. You've probably been to a session and you hear about the sets that they build. And brother, you probably already told this week, I would imagine. But they build incredible sets, coliseums and ships, and it's unbelievable. If you've never seen pictures, you've got to see it. It's just unbelievable. First time I went there, you guys were doing space, and they had an airlock. So cool. The whole thing, it was just epic. So they do first-class job. But if I remember right, Brother Baker, you guys built an indoor river upstairs, and the river sprung a leak and began to rain on the first floor. And so they learned not never try, not never decorate, not never go above and beyond, but rather channel what we're doing to our location. And thank God it wasn't a finished building. Is that right? It wasn't quite finished, so it didn't ruin all the drywall and paint and everything. But they learned to plan creatively, but also logistically. They learned that creativity and common sense together equal success. And so we've probably all done a version of that where you decorate or go over the top and you realize, ooh, maybe I should have rethought that a little bit. This one's actually from Brother Baker as well. But they wanted to add fire breathing into their lesson. Fire is always a winner for boys, especially. And so if you can add that into class, well, I do a silly, like an intro thing where I pretend I'm going to eat fire. Well, a guy in his church apparently got inspired and said, no, I'm actually going to eat fire. And he did. He mouthful of oil, blows this big old flame. Really cool. When I was there, it was just awesome. The problem was the fuel this day was accidentally replaced with water, and he didn't know it until he has it in his mouth, and he realizes this is not the fuel. And so when he tried to light it, nothing happened. It was a big flop. So back to test your demonstrations ahead of time. Last minute changes usually mean last minute problems. Keep things organized and triple check. Sometimes in our class especially, we'll have our object lessons all lined up. You have everything prepped for the day, and then someone comes behind you and moves it because they need that spot, but you don't realize it until it's time to teach, and you realize everything's gone and you can't find it. It's the most panic feeling. So check, triple check, right before you need it, check again. Here's another one. Permission slips were considered pointless. Okay, this was a bus ministry, another friend of ours, and the director of their bus ministry started telling them, this was a few years ago, hey, we have to start taking these permission slips seriously. You have to get permission from every parent or guardian before you ever pick up a kid. I mean, you cannot not do this. This is serious. And they said, yeah, and they kind of brushed it off. They ignored it until the day their bus was in a car accident. And now the police are saying, where's all the permission slips? And they're asking for them, and they didn't have a bunch of them. And it turned into a bad deal. All of a sudden they realized, okay, this stuff really does have meaning. This is important stuff. There was another church, and they picked up a bunch of kids, and again, permission slips, really important. Well, one got on the bus without a permission slip, and they didn't think twice about it. They said, it's fine. You know, the kid they were with said, their parents said it's fine, but they never double checked. Well, that parent turned him in for kidnapping and said, my kid was just kidnapped by a bus. He just got picked up because that kid never asked permission. And so the church ended up picking it. It ended up being okay, but it's still a scary deal when you get in a position like that, when it could have been easily as permission slips are required, no exception. A great way to avoid that, by the way, is digital permission slips. You can even text it to a parent. They can click on the link and they can sign it electronically, and it's just as legal as having a piece of paper. We use Jotform for that, and it's very, very effective. Here's another one. Another mistake that this same church learned is they had a bus, and they had someone go fill it up. So they did. They didn't know it was a diesel bus, so they put gas in it. Filled up, a 70-gallon tank or whatever it was with the wrong fuel. And they ran it and realized they almost killed the bus. They were able to recover it, but they almost destroyed it. And that lesson they learned is that you have to train everybody on everything. You cannot assume that the basics are known by, there's some stuff you assume are common sense, but they're not. If you've never driven a bus before, you probably don't even know what that green handle's for. Like, what's that? Yeah, it's always there. I didn't know I was supposed to use it. You can't put diesel in a gas car. I don't know if you know that, but the nozzles are a different size. You can't put a diesel in your gas tank, but you can go the opposite way. You can put gas in a diesel. So that's what happened. Here's another one. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to skip. How are we doing? I got 5 minutes. Trying to carry the whole load alone. This was by another friend of ours, and he and his wife were running the Sunday school in their church, and they really wanted to kind of show their team, this is how it's done, so they carried the entire load for everybody. They did all the work. They did all the decorating, all the planning, all the scheduling, they did it all themselves because they were hoping the teachers, this is how he phrased it, would catch the vision. But what happened was all the teachers let them do the work. They said, this is great. He said it enabled those teachers to show up unprepared because they knew it was all going to be taken care of. And so the lesson he learned was, you cannot inspire growth in your team by doing everything yourself. You have to spread the load. You have to delegate. Yes, you still have to keep your hands on it. Just make sure that everything's being done. You have to have organized, focused teacher meetings to help unlock the potential in people, because Sunday school should be a place for everybody to grow. But the alternative to that is, they don't care, I don't care. That's not the solution either. The solution is not to do it all yourself, to spread the load out. I got 4 minutes and 26 seconds. All right. This is just kind of a funny one. Brother James Pelletier shared this with me. But they had a big church service like the one we had last night. And this is the one where all the parents and all the members of the church get to see Sunday school in action right in the main stage. And so they're playing a song that he thought he had listened to before, but he didn't realize it turned pretty wild halfway through the song. I mean, it turns into this crazy rap song, and he didn't know it. And so he's back there, and he hears something. What was that? And he realized that that's my phone playing that. And he said the bishop's wife was going, oh my God, what is happening? And so he's panicking, trying to shut this down. So his lesson he learned, I know this is funny and silly, but you have to listen to everything. You got to listen to all the way through, especially in a setting like that, because you just never know. That's why I love apostolic content, because you don't have to worry about it. Man, we need more apostolic musicians and creatives out there that are putting out stuff. Mandatory rotations without communication. We actually had this happen in our church as well, but to avoid the burnout, this Sunday school director created a system where all the teachers would rotate 13 weeks on, 13 weeks off. I'm not saying rotations are bad. The problem was he did it without asking or without explaining. He just said, hey, we're doing this, so you're going to be off for 13 weeks. And these teachers that had taught for decades suddenly felt like they had messed up. They had failed. And so they felt, without even talking to him, that have we been doing it wrong this whole time? And so without communication, it really messed up his core team, where they all thought that they weren't good enough to teach. They were very upset, felt like they were being discarded. So he learned from that communication needs to be behind every decision that you do, and talk to people ahead of time. So we actually had that happen in our church where it was a forced rotation without any communication. And I remember I had been in Sunday school for, 5-6 years at that point. And I was told, you're not teaching them. And it was like a body blow. Like, why? What did I do? Oh, did I mess up? Was it fire? Was it the fire? It was the fire, wasn't it? I know it was the fire. No, and we really did. We felt like we had messed up because there wasn't communication behind it. Now, I only got another 1 minute, 57 seconds. I'm going to talk to you about the worst Easter Sunday we ever had. It was horrible. But we had it all planned out. We thought it was going to be the best. We had an Easter skit just for our kids. We had practice. We had all the props. We had it all set up. We had candy rain set up. We had scooter giveaways. I mean, we had everything planned. It was going to be the best Easter Sunday on record. And we realized that things were about to go wrong when we saw smoke on the road as our bus pulled in on fire, literally on fire, flames coming out the bottom of the bus. Apparently the transmission hose had popped, squirted on the engine, flame lit, and all the kids are smelling it, but they don't know what's going on. And the bus driver, it was actually her husband, is realizing we have a problem. But he was right here, so he pulls up to the church. There's smoke pouring out everywhere. The kids are screaming. We get them off the bus. The fire engines are called. I'm dressed as Peter. I have my robe on and a fire extinguisher in hand. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm laying under the bus, getting soaked by transmission fluid, hosing this thing down. I didn't know that those things work off of like removing oxygen from the air. Apparently that one did. So I couldn't breathe. So it was a great start to the Sunday. I'm covered in oil, trying to act like Peter so we're doing our Easter play. And you would think that would be a bad enough Sunday, but that was scene one. So we do our Easter play, and it went okay. Well, at the altar call, we're praying for kids. I look up, it was in this room, I look at the back, and I see an altercation. I see something going on. Turns out it was a backslidden church family's boy messing with one of our bus riders. Well, it didn't go down well. Pretty soon, knives were pulled. Yeah, it got bad quick. They're all rushing out in the parking lot now. They're ready to have a brawl. What we don't know is that some of the bus riders have their phones and are calling parents. So parents start pulling in their car ready to fight. The families, they're not here anymore. Families from the church that you should know better came out ready to fight back. They were ready. This all happened on the same Easter Sunday. The police are called. The fire engines had just left. Now the police are here. And so it was absolute chaos. And in the middle of this, I'm reeling through, what are we even bothering doing this for? We're wasting our time. In the middle of that, my head's spinning. I had a key member of our church come up to me and say, you need to shut this whole business down. This is ridiculous. My kids are afraid to go to Sunday school. They're learning words that they shouldn't from some of the people you pick up. This is ridiculous. You need to shut this thing down. And I remember being so disoriented and so just rocked by the entire day that I thought, he might be right. He could be right. And I remember talking to my brother, my pastor, and I said, this is what I was told. This is the Sunday we had. He knew. He was right in the middle. I said, is that what we should do? Just shut it all down? I'll never forget. He looks at me. He said, don't ever let this mess with what you're doing. He said, we're going to pick up more kids next Sunday. We're going to do it again. And he finally got me recalibrated. Okay, no, we're doing the right thing. But we learned from that Sunday. And boy, we learned a lot. We learned that after failure, you got to figure out why it happened. And we had a lot of stuff. You can't just move on. You got to stop and ask what actually went wrong. In our case, it wasn't the idea itself. It wasn't that we had a big Sunday. It was the structure. We had no discipline policy, no security team. We had no protocol. We had no secure areas. So those bus families could just come right in. We had no way of preventing it. We didn't have any of this in place. And so since then, we built a security team, secured the area, have clear instruction. We have someone that's a security team outside. This isn't all a direct result of that one event, but this is stuff that we have learned that we needed to do differently. We have recently had an event that didn't go well in one of our classes. I have to purposely be discreet because it just happened. But it was just as bad as what I just told you. But nobody even knew it happened. Because it was contained, it was taken care of, the security team was on it. We never even missed a beat. Not any of those classes even knew it happened. Police weren't called, people weren't involved because we had things in place, because we learned from the mistake. And we are, what time are we supposed to be done? 12:50? Am I 3 minutes over? I think I'm 3 minutes over. Lunch is at 1, so in theory we have 7 minutes. Okay, all right. But we did learn from that. And so this last Sunday, I really did have some trepidation because this last Sunday this Easter Sunday, we did a Easter drummer for our kids again. Same thing. We also did a big candy rain. But this time we added money to it, so it was a money candy rain. This time we gave away the scooters again. Every exact thing, like literally point for point that we did on that bad Sunday, we did it again. And I was thinking, God, please, I don't want to learn any more lessons. Like, I hope we've learned them. But it went perfectly. Well, not perfect. We did knock some kids out because they dropped them from a lift and about, I don't know if you had a blow pop hit a kid from 30 feet up, but man, that can sting. We learned that's not a great idea. But from all of that, I want you to end with this. Failure is not your enemy. Not learning from the failure is. You need to stretch yourself sometimes until you do mess up. You need to try so hard that eventually you fail. If you're not trying that hard, then you need to stretch yourself, push harder, and do more. Every major success we've experienced came because we were willing to own our mistakes, learn from them, try them again, smarter, stronger, better. If you're afraid to fall, you'll never grow up. Don't play it safe. Don't hide from the failure, but fail big, learn fast, because you'll succeed even bigger. And that's a lot. I skipped a bunch of failures because, man, we got a lot of them. Anyway, that's it. Let's go eat lunch. God bless you.